Clap hands.
There it is.
There it is.
Hello. Hey, boys. How you doing?
Hi. Good.
I'm hopeless.
It's fucking hopeless. What's up? It's Whatchu Spinnin, episode 71. I'm Dorian, coming to you live, actually. It's pre-recorded from my home here with my best pals. Jake, how are you doing?
Doing good.
Good? It's so good to see you, man.
It's so good to be here.
Hell yeah. Matt, how are you doing?
I am not hopeless, after all. I have lots of hope. I'm doing good. Glad to be here. Glad to see you guys.
Hell yeah.
Good
Yeah.
picks this week.
Reach out and touch Matt. Yeah. Fucking, I was
Nice.
thinking, I was like, we need a soundboard of like, we need like the Rob Zombie, yeah.
Yes. Yes, this is a great idea.
Like, we need to make a
That'd be
soundboard.
funny.
That's like the next step in being an obnoxious podcaster is getting a soundboard of random things, of all the inside jokes.
Endless possibilities.
Absolutely. I was driving around today. I ran a couple errands and I was like, Personal Jesus, the original came on, but I was like, oh, the Marilyn Manson version. I was like, that would be hilarious to have as like a drop, and then listen to White Zombie in the shower. And so automatically, I was like, man, there we go. I was like, there's another one. I was like, if I sat here and went through the archives, I was like, I just went back through recently. I could go back again.
Oh, man.
But hell yeah, guys. I'm so glad you guys came. It's been a while.
It has.
Since I last saw you. We're just gonna keep doing bits. We're loose.
It's been a while. You're right. It has been a few weeks, so it's good that we're back. And
Yes.
Yeah. How'd you guys? We were kind of talking about it. How was it? Kind of revisiting some of those albums from the remix episode. Go ahead and check that out. We weren't able to meet 2 weeks ago, so I made a little remix ep that you can go ahead and check out on our page. I had a fun time going back through listening to those. I kind of did.
Yeah.
Leading up to that coming out as I was editing it, but do you guys have any thoughts on some of that?
It was fun looking back, not only at the music, but like just the episode, like the podcast, like seeing the old setup, like seeing us when we were freshly starting, not too, I guess, out there with our opinions, with our thoughts. Same thing with our picks. I feel like they were pretty safe picks. But it was a good revisit just in general. And the music, I mean, it's always stayed. I've always had love for those albums.
yeah, it was fun watching, kind of like you just said, when you guys were first starting to do the podcast and coming into it. And what a great album to talk about, the one that I picked, of course. Because my Haram, I mean, listening to you guys talk about that album inspired me again to just go back and listen to it over and over again. Not like I don't do that already, but
Yeah.
you guys showed so much love for it early on, and it was fun to hear other people talk about it, because I know we all love that album, and so it was great to hear that. Yeah,
that one in particular was a great one to pull and revisit, because I didn't realize, because that was episode 10, so like as far as editing and everything, like I was still kind of figuring it out, and didn't realize how much we talked about that album, and that was kind of my take. I was like, God damn, like I made it in my notes here. It was like, oh yeah, Matt, you started talking at minute 4, and then I mentioned my album or my pick at minute 43. We talked about Haram for basically half of a current episode, or 2/3 of a current episode. But no, it was Jake kind of brought this up in that episode when we were doing kind of the commentary prior to it. He said, he was like, it kind of inspired us to like get really involved and like get into the notes. And unfortunately, the original take did get lost. But that album in and of itself, listening to the lyrical content of it, and the whole thing kind of made me get into that kind of weird ass, it was the jumping off point, because there's like MF Doom is one thing, but then you start getting into like the lyrical depth that is, Billy Woods and Elucid. Shout out. We've got maps up on the wall today. Wall curated by me. Go ahead and follow me at Dorian Dilly on Instagram. See my vinyl walls every week. Anyway, but getting into that lyrical content was like inspired me to get back into like Deltron, but then kind of jump off and get into like Boldy James and the West Side Guns and all that stuff. So shout out to you for making us revisit it. Shout out Jake for introducing me to that album in the first place. Never would have known about it. So
it was cool also to hear you guys talk about the lyrical content. I think
Oh yeah.
you guys spoke a lot about that.
Yeah.
And it was cool because like, yes, we get to talk about this, and I get to hear this, and it was really cool. I appreciated that part.
It's been like such a journey too, seeing that since we've brought that album up, we've just fell in love with the genre, the like group, Arm & Hammer as a whole. But that album just keeps coming back. That group just keeps coming back. Like it's only like ever growing and appreciating that it always gets brought up, and it's with respect to Arm & Hammer and Haram. So
hell yeah, absolutely. And then Gets Gilberto was, you brought that or revisited that at a perfect time. I've been getting into a lot of jazz. Shout out Herb Hancock up on the wall behind us as well. So revisiting that, it was popping up on my Spotify based off of like suggested. So that's another one I'm gonna have to get because I just recently started getting into collecting jazz. So that's been fun as well. And then Mars Volta was a random one.
That was a random one. I like that conversation we had about that album was fun too.
Yeah, because it was kind of the biggest one of those albums and artists that you've brought up, Matt, where it's been that I've seen this name 1,000 times but never bothered to listen to him that I have all the time. I.e. with like the Cigaros and Fugazi. There's every other artist.
We do bring up.
You're our
music.
oracle, baby.
yeah.
You're my alternative oracle. I can't wait to get into your album for today. But yeah, Mars Volta. That was a really fun one to get back into. I've been getting into a kind of prog metal-ish, like math metal group called Thank You Scientist. That's really good. Their bassist is fucking insane. There's a guy I follow like in some math indie prog band on Facebook, and he constantly is like doing a cover of one of their songs, and I'm like, listen to their album. I can't remember the name of it.
That's a pretty sweet name though for a band.
But yeah, Thank You Scientist. They're great. Their bassist kills.
That's cool.
And so I was listening to them, and I was like, man, you know what this reminds me of? I was like, this reminds me of fucking Deloused, baby. And so I listened to that for like 3 days straight and was like, God damn, hell yeah. So that was another fun one to revisit, and I did like our conversation about it. But let's go ahead and do our little new tradition that we've been doing. Anybody listening to anything cool outside of... We've been apart for a while, so we had a little more freelance time.
I feel like my mornings usually for work are spent with like ambient music because I have to do certain things in the morning that require like just focus, and so if I put on something weird, it'll just let me go. So just some different Japanese artists.
Nice.
One by the name of Hiroshi Yoshimura.
Oh my god, I saw the cover of it, the Leaf one, right?
Yeah,
I fucking love that album.
Yeah,
too.
it's pretty mellow.
I listened to that on a Shrimp Trip once. Awesome.
That's
like
perfect.
very ambient, very like low key. It was fucking awesome. I love that album.
That's cool. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Just stuff like that. Yeah.
Fuck yeah. That's awesome.
Speaking of stuff lately, that I forget which one of you guys brought it up, but I started listening to it. And it was really fucking good. Though Medeski?
Medeski, Martin, and Wood.
Oh my god,
dude!
Wow,
crazy.
What's the song
That's
on there?
so good.
What is it, Patty? Can you click into it for me?
Yeah, I really liked
the title track,
Uninvisible. That song is good, but dude, wow, how'd you find that?
So actually, I didn't want to kind of take the mic and talk about it, but I ended up last week playing in that gig with Truffle Jam, and it was all very spontaneous. I had like legit 18 hours between the jam practice to like showtime, and after I hadn't played with them in like a year, and so that day I was sitting there listening to what they had told me the set list was going to be. Half of that turned out to be true. We went a lot off the fly, and then I was just learning stuff on stage. It was pretty tight. Jake, you were there. Thanks.
You guys
for
killed. Yeah, that was awesome. It was a good show.
It was a blast. But afterward, we played like 3 or 4 Grateful Dead songs. That was tight. I've been getting into them, so that was pretty cool to do. But they're also big Fish heads, and so we did some Fish covers. And the only thing I know about Fish prior to this, and other than them being a jam band, is that they did a cover of 2001, that Deodato song that like has the music from A Space Odyssey in it. And so I found a 17-minute version of that on Spotify and was listening to it. And then Spotify just suggested whatever that song is, Patty something off of that.
Patty Check, yeah.
Yeah, Patty Check off of that Medeski, Martin and Wood album. And I started listening to it and I was like, what the... I was like, dude, this is rad as hell. And the crazy thing about it is I think it's Martin or Medeski, that's the bass player. He's playing an upright bass most of the time. Like, it's not a bass guitar.
Oh.
And I need to ask somebody a question about that. How did you find out about that? Because I sent that yesterday, and you're like, you're like, I've heard this before. I was like, I thought I discovered a gem. Because
I thought so, too. That's my first time.
When I first started learning how to play the guitar, a lot of my friends that I was with at that time were already musicians, going to the University of Oregon, studying musician, whatever, trying to study music, make something of themselves. So they would always listen to abstract jazz and stuff like that. And Herbie Hancock, that band, all these different things. So that was my intro to them. Kind of threw me off because I didn't know how to play any songs. They'd be jamming. I'm just like, meh, meh, meh. But it was my introduction, and so early on,
Yeah, that's awesome.
I haven't heard the whole thing, but like I was at work when you guys sent that, and I just put my headset on and listened to just like the first 30 seconds of it, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?"
Yeah,
and I didn't get a chance to do the rest because I was at work, but definitely got to look into that some more. Besides that, like, I know Makami just dropped the album. We were talking about that before.
Pretty good.
I'm like 4 songs in. I really like it. He's really good at like switching from English to Creole and then to French and then back to English. Like it's nuts, but I'm trying to listen to that whole thing.
Yeah, I saw that you had sent that, and as soon as I saw because it popped up on my watch because I had just gotten home, so I was like putting stuff away, and I was like, whatever, like real ass Haitian or whatever. I was like, yeah, I was like, is that? I was like, that's gotta be. I was like, is that hum? Because it like didn't show me the album cover. I was like, oh no shit, and I was still finishing up my notes, and then ended up. I had In Flames up on the wall, so after spinning my pick for this week, I threw an old friend of mine up on there. So I haven't gotten around to listening to it, but I love the rave reviews I'm hearing from y'all so far. We do love some Makami around here. Speaking of Medeski, Martin, and Wood, that's kind of the weird thing I've been getting into. I was telling y'all I signed up for bass lessons. Did that mainly to like learn music theory, but then also like I'm like. There's always something you could learn more, right? And so did that, but with listening to that Uninvisible album, that's what got me onto that playlist deep dive I was telling you about, and ended up finding one with Victor Wooten on the cover, and it was all bass stuff. And so I got into Jaco Pastorius of Weather Report fame. I got into his like solo work. And speaking of Herb, he's got an album where it's just like Herb on piano and Jaco just ripping it up on electric bass, and it's unreal. Yeah. They both like Herbie doesn't steal the show. Like I wouldn't have known that if I didn't look up the album, And then once you see it, you go back and listen to it, you're like, oh yeah, like of course it is. But
that's really cool.
Just like that kind of stuff. That's been fun getting back into playing bass. And all that kind of fun stuff. But yeah, I have one thing I want to say about these albums. It's very rare, or back it up.
Start over.
When I was going back through and trying to figure out an episode I wanted to highlight of the podcast, I was really drawn to, speaking of In Flames, the one where it was A Sense of Purpose by In Flames, Black on Both Sides, and Pete LaRocca.
Nice.
Basra.
What an episode.
And that, I feel like that's like I think it has I think it might be our most viewed on Spotify or something. Because it's the one that I tell people, because I've been asked a handful of times like, which one would you recommend, and I always do that one because I feel like that's
nice.
At the time that was like the best representation of like what the podcast is. Like this is basically hits all of our kind of niches a little bit, like you're going to see a lot of these 3 things, that's like a good sense of very direct. You're going to see a lot of hip hop with Mos Def, a lot of jazz, and a lot of metal. We have done it yet again, but I feel as if it's a little bit more evolved this time around because these are albums I think that we have picked that kind of, in my opinion, like, to get deep about it, this isn't because I'm a little roasted, as I was told by somebody near and dear to me. I felt this listening to these. They're like representations of the stuff that we've brought up on this podcast. Like, Matt, you bringing up this Jane's Addiction album is, I'm like, yeah, that's the stuff. That's like what you and I bonded over, is like that genre of music.
Sure.
And it's like not Tool, which is, you know, the ultimate thing that we ended up talking, you know, becoming close over. But I'm like, yeah, Jane's Addiction. I think of Matt. I think of Jane's Addiction. Like, that makes the most sense. Peter Cat with Jacob. It's the same fucking thing. And then it's like Lamb of God. I'm like, of course I would bring the, you know.
No, you bring up a good point.
Yeah,
it's true,
like,
man.
So we've done it yet again, but with a little bit more nuance and like depth to it, you know, kind of being like, hey, this is all stuff that we all also have grown seasoned like appreciation for, because, you know, I kind of forced the metal thing upon you guys a little bit, and so that's why when we were out there, I was like, I'm sorry, like, I felt like it was a little too aggressive, and Matt's like, this is like tame in comparison to a lot of the shit, and I'm like, I don't fucking know anymore, man. My gauge is broken, I guess.
And it kind of makes sense too, like the picks that we picked. It makes sense. Like, we have some like older stuff that at the same time it's, you know, a classic. It sets up that genre and like that group. And very influential, and then something a little bit newer but still indie, still fresh, kind of underground, and then you have, you know, something that it's very textbook what Dorian would do, just bring up a metal album and like feel bad about it, but it's like, we love this stuff. Like, there's been way more stuff that you've, like, we were talking about it, like some of your other picks before, they felt a little bit more if not, but it's like what you said, it's a good point. It's like kind of evolved for our picks. It's spot on. It's very on brand for each of us. Yeah.
This is like the new edition of the episode I'll send people, probably. Because it's like, this is a good representation of what we bring up, you know?
Yeah.
And this is like very much it. Yeah. Because it's like, I don't know, listening to Jane's Addiction, I'm like, yeah, this is like, I imagine Matt driving the Mazda listening to this right now. And then Peter Cat, I'm like, Jake's probably drinking a sparkling water on his back porch listening to this right now. Because I was at the time drinking a glass of rosé on the back porch listening to it. Yeah, so hell yeah. I just wanted to like point that out. I was like, yeah, this is kind of very on brand for us, but like an evolved version of an episode that I had recently watched the whole thing, because I almost highlighted the whole thing. I almost pulled a card and was like, you know what? Fuck picking a particular album. Go listen to this whole episode. It's the one I sent everybody. And I'm glad I didn't do that. But with that, I think we go ahead and dive into
do it.
Today's content. Any parting words beforehand?
I have nothing to add on to that. I think you guys summed it up perfectly. We all just had our ideal picks.
Yeah.
It sums us up to a T, and I think it shows what this podcast is about, sharing different genres and not being stale, man. We like to mix it up. And hopefully bringing up bands that you have heard of or haven't heard of, and an appreciation for new stuff.
I was talking to somebody at work yesterday about the podcast, and they're like, wow, that episode you're doing tomorrow is very out there. And I said, well, wait until you hear what last episode was. Because I told them who picked what. And I was like, I picked a fucking trance album. They're like, what? I'm like, yeah, dude. It's all cool.
That's how we do it.
It's all whatever. They're like, didn't you do it? And I was like, yeah, mind you, I also did a jam band gig last weekend. I did Grateful Dead and Fish covers fucking 7 days ago. I'm like, what's up?
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Well, it's Whatchu Spinnin' episode 71. Anyway,
don't do it.
Female. So it's Whatchu Spinnin' episode 71, and we're here to finally bring you today's content. 3 great albums, as we just discussed. A real solid representation of what this podcast is and can be for you. Anyway, I'm Dorian, and I'm going first because that's what we decided in my garage during a corporate meeting.
Wow, way to spill
Doors
the tea,
were closed.
Dorian.
We have a couch and chair out there. That chair I was in reclines too. So
Ooh, nice.
I was out there while she was in Utah. I was out on the couch, like theater couching it. Anyway, it's my turn to talk.
The life.
About my album, 2004's Lamb of God, Ashes of the Wake. A fantastic kind of, I guess you could call it thrash metal, but it's a little bit better than that. In my opinion, or in my personal top 10 metal albums of all time. Yeah, one of my favorite drumming albums ever. I've loved it forever. I've wanted to bring it up the entirety of this podcast, but waited until I had it, and then even at that rate, waited about 4 months to bring it up. So, Lamb of God, Ashes of the Wake, what do my boys think of it?
What do we think about it? I've never listened to an album by this band, and I know they've been around forever, since 94, I think, and have a shit ton of albums, so my bad. But they were like one of the kind of pioneers for bringing metal music back, to America at least. And I know that their sound, you can definitely hear that. You know, it's got the Pantera vibe. The vocals are different. Yeah, it kind of goes between the speaking and the screaming, and then almost the guttural too. But it's guttural to where you can understand it a little bit more. For those of us that don't listen to heavy music all the time, I think it's a little bit more accessible in that way. And the guitar and bass and even the percussion are amazing. Like you said, as far as a drumming album, this album's intense. It's really good.
Yeah.
And Randy Blythe, I've never heard him sing before, but I think he's unique. I like the songwriting style. I don't know who does the majority of the songwriting, but as a band, as a whole, they're great musicians. I like the original name they had for the band, Burn the Priest.
Burn the Priest.
Man, what a great name for a band.
That they, I think they go by that name for like a cover album that they've done.
Okay.
They did. I don't know if it's all of Lamb of God, but I know it's Randy. I think it's Willie Adler. Maybe one other guy from Lamb of God, but it's like a cover band, but it's like mainly Lamb of God dudes, and they do. I think they did they've done like an album, and it's like Misfits cover, and then like old Lamb of God shit, like demo days Lamb of God stuff.
That band name too, Burn the Priest. Didn't they get banned from playing in shows in California because of it?
Yeah,
I think for a little bit.
Yeah, people think
it's kind of funny.
People, that's like the misconception with the band, is they think that it was the name of Lamb of God, and it's like, no, they were called Burn the Priest before that. Like,
yeah,
that's the tame one.
Yeah.
But same, I had never heard of this band, and it's been around forever. And I think this is a perfect example of what the band is, because it's like, probably their best. I want to hear some of their other stuff, but really good. Pretty much the same points as Matt brought up, the lyrics and when he's singing, Randy, it's not very it's not too guttural, it's not too intense, but you can definitely make out what he's saying, but he still has that intensity. It's still intense at certain points, and some songs they'll just constantly keep that same level of intensity, and then they'll drop off a little bit. One of my favorites, Now You've Got Something to Die For, probably my favorite song, because same thing, you think it's over at the end, and then it just keeps going, and then it keeps going.
It's the Disposable Heroes effect.
Yeah. It's so good. But no, great, and it's been around forever. They're getting close to 25 years now that this album's been out for. So.
Yeah, 20-year tour right now. They're doing with Mastodon for Leviathan. I'm really trying to go to that show.
Yeah.
That would be an epic show to see.
That'd be nuts. But yeah, I shout out, speaking of Disposable Heroes and speaking of this group, shout out to my buddy Cody, who I've talked about a handful of times on here. He's the guy who introduced me to this album. Told me to listen to the full thing. I had heard Laid to Rest. That was about my extent of Lamb of God, and I was like, a junior in high school, and I was showing him Floater, and we were listening, after we listened to Glyph, we listened to Kill 'Em All by Metallica, insane album, and then he's like, you ever listen to, because I was really into drumming at the time, it was before, I was like a drummer without a drum set, basically, like that kid, but he and I had been jamming on bass and stuff. He's like, you like drumming, you should listen to Lamb of God and Chris Adler, their drummer, and he put on Hourglass and The Faded Line. And I was like, gee, Zus Christ, dude, the bass rolls that he does on Hourglass, and then those little cymbal bell hits he's doing on Faded Line. The guy's a machine on drums, and that made me fall in love with this album. And it took me a long time to venture outside of this in their discography, but they have a lot of good stuff across the board. Randy Blythe is an insane lyricist or insane vocalist, and the lyrical content is also very well written. There's
I thought so.
Yeah, it's for what it is. It's like there's a lot of layer to it and like nuance, I feel like. And then you were talking about his range, like that Pantera squeal.
Yeah, totally. He has that.
Yeah.
And for a lot of bands that make this kind of music, the songwriting's terrible. You know, and I like that they don't have that at all. It's I don't know. It's easy to hear and listen to, and it wasn't cheesy at all.
Yeah, exactly. Like having songs titled like One Gun and stuff, it would be concerning, but
right. But if
good.
if you write good songs, it all comes out in the end. And I think they did a good job on this album. I'm curious to hear more of their discography as well. Do you have any other albums that you'd recommend?
I can never remember. I get the album covers and titles confused, so give me 2 seconds so I don't misquote anything.
But they have that thrash sound for sure.
Yeah, and it was like how they had like the new wave of British heavy metal with like Judas Priest and stuff. It was kind of the new wave of American heavy metal that was going on in 2000, like the early 2000s and stuff. So you were exactly correct. Like but it was like people, it's like the big four of thrash metal, that it's that but reimagined kind of, Let's see.
One like little fact I saw that was kind of cool, that the singer he was listening to a lot of Outkast and Clips
That's awesome.
and reggae.
Yes.
Like in the making of this, I was like, that's pretty cool.
That's really cool.
Sacrament.
Okay.
It's purple with a goblet on it. Redneck is like their other. That's like a huge song of theirs. I've heard that. I saw a review that Omens, their latest album, wasn't half bad.
Okay.
Wrath is good. But yeah, Ashes of the Wake is by far their best album. People still say, because there's been like 20 anniversary.
Yeah, they're playing it live, right? At the tour, yeah?
Yeah, but people have been like writing articles about it, and they're like, still to this day, it's their best album. But yeah, Sacrament, Wrath, and then Bad Omens.
Yeah. Even the track that you picked to play, Omerta, dude, that shows off the whole range of this album.
Yeah.
With him starting off just speaking.
Yeah.
And then going into it, and just the whole music throughout that whole song is so good.
Yeah.
Code
if
of
I
Silence.
die, I will kill you.
I fucking love that song.
It's so, just that, you said it perfectly, that speaking intro into that, it's so locked in.
That was the first song I heard of this album, and I was confused because I was like, why is there like a sample in the beginning, and then it goes into it, and you're like, oh shit, this is fucking good.
It was like an interlude or something.
Yeah.
Between tracks, but
And then you hear the rest of the album, like now that I got a chance to listen to the full thing, and man, it's really good.
Yeah.
Really fucking good. And a lot of range, a lot of different types of songs that they have, but it keeps that same level throughout the whole album. Another cool thing, I'm the facts guy today, by the way, because I got a lot of facts for this album.
Please.
Another cool one, that the title track, Ashes of the Wake, it's got a feature of Chris Poland from Megadeth, and also, who is it? A guy from Testament. It's got two from
That's
Megadeth
right.
and Testament.
I
They
knew,
got,
I knew about the Testament one. I didn't know about the...
yeah, they do guitar solos.
Hell yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Hell yeah. There was a couple of... The second half of like Blood of the Scribe, like when that's another one that kind of you think, kind of like now you've got something to die for, you think that Blood of the Scribe is like kind of wrapped up, and then it does this like crazy breakdown. Like I was doing dishes to it earlier, and I was like, like I like locked up. I was like, oh my god! I was like, I forgot about it for a second, even though I've listened to this. I listened to all three of these albums every single day from the time we announced them, basically. Like, I was that
Oh, that's
stoked.
quite the range.
I was that stoked for this episode. But yeah, I was like, it just still, that second breakdown that it does in Blood of the Scribe still to this day, you know, with all that being said, is like, god damn, it's just insane. The riffs on it are nuts. Chris Adler's drumming is, of course, like I said, wild. He's no longer in the band. And here's a fun fact. Jacob, did you pick up this fact? Do you know what Chris Adler's doing for a living now that he's not the drummer?
No, what is he doing?
So he has a band called Firstborn that is like only on Bandcamp, I want to say. Like they don't have, like they might be on Spotify. They might have a couple songs. He is an associate manager of a Home Depot in Virginia.
Whoa.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Not what I expected.
No,
That's
not at all.
quite the change.
Yeah. Because I was like, I wanted to, because he's one of my favorite drummers. Like I said, this is top 3 best drumming album in my opinion. And so I was like, I want to see what he's doing now.
Yeah.
And looked it up, found Reddit threads, and it's like, yeah, no, he's in this like weird, it's like very Testament-esque actually. And it's like, yeah, but other than that, they haven't put music out in like 6 years. You can catch him spinning paint at your local Home Depot in Norfolk or some shit.
Man, well, he chose that life, I guess.
Someone like talked to like his old drum tech or something at like a current Lamb of God show because he's stuck with them, I guess, the drum tech. And he's like, yeah, he's just Jay chillin'. He loves his life. Like he's
Probably
just
made a decent amount of money and just got a job to do stuff, right? Yeah.
They won Grammys.
Yeah, I'm sure he's fine.
Oh yeah.
That's cool though to like kind of just live a normal life afterwards.
Yeah.
He's not like on his high horse or
Yeah.
I made this, I'm gonna whatever. He's a people's people. He's working at the Home Depot. You can catch him working the forklift. Just
that was just wild to me. I was like, man, really? Okay,
that's cool.
Hell yeah. Cool. But yeah, let's go ahead and do some top 3s, eh?
Let's do it.
Yep. Honorable mentions for me. I've got Hourglass. Just like I said, that bass roll, oh man, it's almost a guitar riff in and of itself because it's just like nuts. And that was like my reintroduction my introduction to this album as a whole was that song outside of Laid to Rest. But shout out that song also. Blood of the Scribe, my second honorable mention. Like I just said, that breakdown, beautiful. Number 3, Remorses for the Dead. Fell in love with that opening guitar riff. Reminded me, it was the 70,000th thing that reminded me of Pantera, specifically Cemetery Gates. It reminded me very much of like Cemetery Gates. What's that song on the last half of the In Flames album? It was just like very, that mellow like riff was very nice. Number 2, Omerta. Just that intro to that song is so good. Yeah. And like I was telling y'all, I was in here crowd killing to nobody while I was setting things up today. Once that song kicked in, beautiful song. And the number 1 for me, The Faded Line, because it's fucking hopeless. And just the cymbal bell, that ding, ding, is just too good. And that, it's going to be the first Lamb of God song I learn on the guitar. I swear. I will do it. I'm trying. It's hard. But yeah, shout out. Faded Line.
Nice. Honorable mention, Ashes of the Wake. Love a good title track. Really good. It kind of wraps up pretty good, the album. Number 3, Hourglass. Really like that. Really like the guttural screams in it. And number 2, Omerta. That song, just first song I heard on this album, kind of blew me away. That intro, the Code of Silence, dude, it's so good. And then my favorite track, I've really been digging it. Now You've Got Something to Die For. Something about that, I could keep playing it, and I think it's over, and it always psychs myself out, but I know it's coming, but it's every time it happens, it's really good. And I keep getting into it, so.
Hell yeah.
Great pick, man.
Thank you. I'm glad that you guys liked it.
I love metal picks, and I love especially like, the experimental and maybe not so mainstream metal picks, but even the good ones that are well known, they're still killers. So thank you.
Absolutely. I will always be the metal oracle. Matt, you can be the oracle for everything else. Yeah, I'll take the metal one then.
My top 3 kind of changed on my way over here because it took me a while to get here.
Fuck
So
that.
I played this album as I was stuck in the traffic jam.
It's a good one. It's almost dangerous to get stuck in traffic listening to this one.
And as soon as I got out of the traffic jam, Remorse of the Dead came on, and the end part, the dead, just taking on. No, I was fucked up, but it got me out of there. I hope nobody died in that car accident that I saw. It was pretty bad. That was fucked up. Didn't mean to say that.
No, go.
Didn't think it would go that route, but that's what happened. I'm not lying. I ain't making this
it's
shit
all good.
up. It's
Most
true.
of the time, there's nothing.
It's true. Most of the time,
This
there's
live.
nothing. So, honorable mention for me, also Ashes Awake. We all love a good title track, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And then 321, Omerta. Like I said earlier, that's just a good representation of this album.
Very much so.
Number 2, I like Blood of the Scribe. That was one of my favorite tracks. And then, like you said, it's hopeless. Faded Line's going to be my number 1 track. Yeah.
Did I ruin it? You can't hear it without it. Now.
I'm going to be
Now
doing
I
that every
can't
time I hear
unhear
it.
it.
Yeah.
I beg you guys, please listen to at least that song on the way home and just do it when it does that last breakdown. Just do the drag queen. It's fucking hopeless. Anyway, that was 2004's Ashes of the Wake by Lamb of God. My pick for this beautiful episode 71 of Whatchu Spinnin'. We'll be right back to bring it a little more current and completely polish it up. No distortion on the guitars at all with Jake's pick. It's Whatchu Spinnin', episode 71. Catch you later.
Oh, the why?
Cool.
There it is. There it is.
That'll do, pig.
That'll do, pig.
I made a.
Do you have any pina coladas?
If you like pina coladas, give me a hell yeah. A white Texas rattlesnake.
We needed to do that. That had to be said.
Don't drop my
we got that.
curves.
Don't drop my.
If you like Coors Light, give me a hell yeah.
Really got a strain to do that. I would be a lying motherfucker if I said I didn't listen to 10 minutes of Randy Savage highlight promos.
Yes.
I did that before you guys. Before she got home, I was like, rather than listen to like a whole episode of a podcast, that's usually what I'll do. So I'm gonna just go to the man himself, the Macho Man. Yeah.
It's good for the soul.
Macho Man coming from?
He's flown.
I've sworn with the eagles and I've slid with the snakes and everything in between. Yeah.
Nope. Every time we play Skyrim, gotta throw on the.
the Macho Man Dragons mod.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
beautiful.
Every time you see a dragon, just
do yourself a favor. If you like
Macho Man is
Skyrim,
coming from?
or if you just like good dumb humor, look up Skyrim Macho Man Dragon mod. All of the dragons turn into Macho Man.
That's great.
But it's not just a small Macho Man, it's Macho Man stretched out as a dragon. As a dragon.
the best mod ever
And
created.
it's amazing. But anyway, it's time. Speaking of wrestling, it's time to talk about an album that I think we've all fallen in love with over the past month. I'm going to kick it over to my man Jake to intro his pick for this beautiful episode 71.
Yes, Popcorn Read Me. So, Peter Cat Recording Co. Bismillah, I think is how you pronounce it. 2019 came out. This is the front. This is the back. Cool little fact. I believe those are pictures of their actual wedding. Of the singer, the main guy, Lifafa.
Hell yeah.
Which that's his other stage name. I'm not actually going to pronounce his real stage name or his actual government name because it's pretty hard. But yeah, 2019, pretty good. I've fallen in love with it. I know you guys would too. I knew.
Man, you're good. How do you know?
I knew.
How
I
did
just
you
knew.
know?
Yeah, there's a lot to get into this album. I guess I'll just start off by bringing up how I got into it.
Please do.
There is a couple of multitude shows this year that are really good. Go out there and listen to some live music. It'll change your life. I got tickets to go see Krongbin in August. Already sold out both days.
Oh, what date are you going? I didn't realize you were already going.
I'm going Sunday.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm going Sunday. I'm pretty stoked. And
Matt, let's go to Lamb of God and meet him for dinner.
Bye.
and like the featuring there that they're playing with is Peter Cat recording. And I looked at it. I was like, oh, cool. They're gonna have like a recording, like photographer people there, and they're gonna record the show. I was like, sweet. Nope, it's actually a band, and it's a pretty good band. So that's how I got into them.
But just stumbled.
Yeah, it fell on my lap, and I've been running with it. But yeah, what are your guys' takeaways from it?
Well, I think you and I were talking a minute ago about how we were going to just take the album from them.
Yeah.
So I had the chloroform in my bag.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
so.
Run.
I have I ran out of socks, but I have plenty of pennies and bars of soap. No, I mean, it's just, man, like I was saying, I was like, man, there's so many things in my want list on Discogs already that are $60, and some clown is saying like there's so many people selling it for way higher. But god damn, man, if this isn't an instant earworm, make you fall in love with it album, from the start to the finish, it's got everything. It's got that, mid-May, early June kind of indie vibe that you brought it up at a perfect time. So, I mean, shout out to you. There is kind of a game to podcasting. No, I'm kidding. There is kind of a method to the madness. We're all playing.
One step ahead.
If they don't bring up the proper album, the bear traps snap on their ankles. No.
They're playing checkers. I'm playing chess.
Yeah, no. It was again a great pick at a perfect time. And I think having a longer... The three albums that we got stuck with listening to for a month, I don't think could have been better.
Agreed.
And this one in particular, I found myself, because the weather got exponentially better here in the time that we were away. And so it was just like, yeah, I want to play this and relax outside and then just play it the rest of my day, Start in the morning and end it at night. I loved it.
I'm jealous that you're going to see them. It's going to be a great show.
Yeah.
Especially with Prong Band.
I'm excited for sure.
Their sound is like, it encapsulates so many different genres. It's like an early 60s kind of sound with like a little bit of jazz and a little bit of 70s and then like a modern twist with all that. And it just sounds so fresh. And I didn't really look up any information on this band until this morning, and I didn't realize they were all from Delhi. They're all unique, man. They're all good at what they do. And I'm surprised that we've never heard of this band before based on our listening preferences.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you stumbled upon this, and I'm glad you're going to see them live.
Yeah.
And I know they have other other albums in their discography that I want to check out. But it's such a unique band too. They're all good musicians. And, the songs flow so well. This is almost like one long song for this whole album. I think a lot of the tracks, they don't sound the same, but they have that certain vibe that, like you summed it up. The weather's nice. You can go outside and listen to it. It just makes you happy. Like if you don't feel happy after listening to this record, like this was also an album I listened to on the way over here. Stuck in traffic, happy as can be. These are these people and their music that they're making. So when they can create a vibe like that for someone, doing something right. So.
Yeah. No, music is powerful, and I'm excited for that show. Y'all, if y'all live here locally, can go also. They're having a show in Portland in October.
We'll be there.
There's I mean, I feel like it's definitely one of those niche, underrated bands that, like,
for sure,
when you stumble upon and you're like, oh, this is fucking awesome, I want to tell the whole world, but then you're like, oh, I actually like these guys, I kind of don't want to tell the whole
yeah
but
this is our band.
Yeah, but they deserve all recognition.
Yes, 100%.
They're fantastic musicians. They put together a fantastic album, 10 songs. It's fucking killer. The bonus track on this album is really good too.
Yeah, that was the first time I'd heard it, actually.
Yep.
Me too.
I played it when we were sitting around talking about it. It's fucking fantastic. I fell in love with it. I've been binging it since I discovered and got tickets for that show 2 months ago. It's been a part of my life this whole time, and it's just getting started with it.
And they've been making music for a while, I think. I know they lived in the States for a while, then moved back to India, but you can hear it in their musicianship for sure. They know what they're doing.
And I think the album or whatever that was released before this, at least on Spotify, it's like songs from 2010 or something to like 2018.
Yeah.
So yeah, like these guys or some iteration of these fellas have been writing music together forever, and to just this album in particular, there is so much going on to it. The trumpets are insane. The fact that he gets very Sinatra-esque on some songs.
That's who reminded me of
Sinatra.
I was trying to think of a vocal. I'm like, what does he sound like? Dude, hello. Yeah.
Yeah. That's like what I was like, there's no way. And that's like it. That alone, I was like, motherfucker. I was like, this sounds like Sinatra. And I had to look it up and come to find out they're from New Delhi or Delhi. And you're like, wow, like they're, again, just music from a place that you would never think that it would, because it sounds like something that came out of like Bakersfield, California, and it also sounds like a timeless record, like 50s, 60s, 70s. And the album cover alone, like I feel like their entire thing is just done so well. The music is, there's no hitches. It's just so well executed and everything within it. And then the album cover is just like, yeah, that's what it makes me feel like. It's like, grandpa just popped the bottle on. Grandpa just popped the champagne bottle. It's going to be a great reception. Oh, granddad. And that's the last time we saw granddad. Like, that's what it's like, makes you feel as if you were at that event. It's just,
it's a whole package for an album. It gives you that whole sense of what that was about, for sure. That's a good way to sum it up too. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I felt like I was there, listening to it. I was like, that, it just made me instantly in a good mood, and as I was kind of telling y'all, like, they're, sometimes these albums, you got to put them on and like help get yourself out of the work day. And this one I was turning to and, floated by, I would just be like, that horn section, I'd be like,
That song is masterclass, dude. Yeah. That song just hits me in a weird way that I can listen to it nonstop all day. It's a very bright album. It's super feel good, super positive vibes, and it's just fantastic. Their album before this, actually, really jazzy. Okay. Really, really jazzy.
Really?
Really good. Kind of underrated, but they definitely, I think, need to get more recognition, and this is a good album to start. It's very, like you can get into it pretty well. It's really accessible. Yeah. But yeah, I'm really glad you guys digged it. Definitely one up there right now that I've been in my rotation heavily.
Yeah. It was, as I said, I think like a couple episodes ago, I've been getting into this kind of like genre and, listening to like Hers and stuff. And I was like, all right, that's like the next Jacob pick that I have to get. And then you brought this up and I was like, all right, well, now I gotta get that one too. And now I'm like torn.
It's like leapfrog.
Yeah, because I'll do that. I'll be like, all right, there's like certain things that either of y'all have brought up that I'm like, okay, I have a list that I'm like trying to go down. I'm like, Matt introduced me to like Jeff Buckley, so Grace I've been looking for, and then Mars Volta, obviously, as I did. But it's like, man, it's why it's just I'm still floored by this album, man. Like it just and then it gets humorous at certain points, like on Hira.
Hira.
It just got hard.
I know. I'm like, wait a minute. Did he just say that?
Is it the same album? Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, wait a second, hold up.
Some songs too, like they're like Where the Money Flows. It kind of has this like electronic auto tune to it. And then same at the last song, Shit I'm Dreaming, it has a very like instrumental feel from the beginning of it. So it's kind of cool, and it also plays a part to the singer Lifafa, because he also has solo work that it's like instrumental or like electronic, and he's actually done like boiler rooms in India before and stuff. So it was kind of fucking cool. I was like, I did not know that. He's like, kind of a DJ side gig he's doing. But yeah, pretty cool. That's Peter Cat recording.
And they are good. You guys need to check them out.
Yeah.
Today.
For sure. Do it before September 21st. Like, before the summer goes away. Please, for the love of God, listen to this album. It's should be the soundtrack for every summer. There's
perfect. Good way to say it.
I would say it's. And I mean, even on a rainy day, there were a couple of those between the last time we met, and it made it not so rainy on the inside, But I don't have anything further. If we want to get into top traces.
Let's.
Kick us off, big guy.
Number 3. Let's do honorable mention. Just keep the trend. Honorable mention, I'm going to go with Vishnu. Love that song. It's real slow, and then it kind of builds up. I love the end. The ending is really what sets it up for me, and the little horns you hear at the end. Number 3, Memory Box. First song I heard on this album. Blew me away. Just the build up, and then just the vocals.
7 minutes of just
eargasm. It's really good.
It's too good.
Number 2, Soulless Friends. Been loving that song, that little guitar lick. Super good. And then my favorite, Floated By. It's that's where I get that like oldies, like 60s, 50s vibe from it, and it's like awesome.
It's without the backing, it's hear me out. It's like Frankie Valli kind of like in the Four Seasons, kind of like reminiscent, just without the wah, wah, wah. Like remove that backing vocal from it, and it's like just so familiar. It's like Pet Sounds, but better.
Yeah,
it's like Pet Sounds Beach Boys, but better. For me, I would say Freezing. That song, kind of the second half of that one was really good. My honorable mention was Soulless Friends. It was another kind of late fall in love with this song. Number 3 for me, Memory Box. As I said, 7 minutes of greatness. Number 2, Hira. Just kind of liked them playing in a minor key for once on the album, almost. Just that him kind of going like that deeper tone, and being a little more like crooning, a little bit more of like a, it was more of a seductive kind of take. And the number 1, Floated By. I mean, shit, it was the one that made me pick up my guitar and be like, I gotta learn this. I was driving home and heard that song, and I was like, I gotta figure out the chords of this. And so yeah, Floated By, my favorite song on this by far.
Hell yeah. For me, honorable mention is gonna be Remain in Me.
Oh yes.
Good track, right? 3, 2, 1. Go ahead. What were you say?
No. Go.
Floated By, and then number 2, Soulless Friends. I think kind of like I said about the last album, that song takes everything about this album, and that's what you're going to hear throughout the whole album. So if you like that song, you're going to love the whole album.
Yeah, exactly.
And then number 1, I love Memory Box. I felt like that was my top track that I kept coming back to all week, all month.
It's just there's something about it. There's a new thing you fall in love with every time. Memory Box. Yeah. I feel like like if we had 12 more hours, Memory Box might have shot up to first, shot up to first or at least second for me. But hell yeah, Peter Cat Recording Co. Bismillah released in
2019.
Jake's pick for episode 71 of Whatchu Spinnin. We'll be right back to wrap it up and talk about Matt's pick. It's Whatchu Spinnin. See you later. Peace.
If you like 90s rock, can I get a hell yeah?
Dude.
The sad thing is these motherfuckers won't give me a hell yeah. But it's time to wrap up today's content for Whatchu Spinnin' episode 71. And I just realized that if I do it really loud, I can do that stone cold Steve Austin impression. So, which means my girlfriend will make me sleep on the couch by the end of the week. Anyway, I'm Dorian. That's Matt. That's Jake. Matt, why don't you go ahead and tell us what we're talking about to wrap this bad boy up?
Yes, so we're going to end it with an 80s album. The first album by this band from 1987. Their first album was a live album, so it's self-titled, but it's Jane's Addiction. I found this on eBay. Luckily enough, never thought I'd have it on vinyl, but I do. Thank you, seller on eBay. I don't remember your name. Dorian, I think, from Italy. Yes.
Hell yeah.
Starting off with this album, very influential in my early high school music life, learning about bands like Fugazi and Jane's Addiction, just different bands that I'd never really been exposed to. And I had a friend that was really into that kind of music. His sister was older, and she was like kind of introducing him to this music too. And for whatever reason, this album just clicked to me. And I don't know what it was. It wasn't the songwriting. It wasn't the musicianship, because it's all very raw. It's a live album, and you can hear that. But there was just something about the structure of each song and just the way it flows that just made me go, wow, these guys are different. It's interesting. It kind of set the bar for that sort of music. It was before grunge. It was before even alternative had that genre at all. It was phenomenal for a debut album to just come out and make music like this with 4 great musicians that are still doing this today. You know, it's hard to explain it, but for me, it's one of my favorite albums of all time, just because it was so influential to me with the music that I listen to now, and it kind of set the bar for that. Great musicians, Dave Navarro, Perry Farrell, amazing people. Stephen Perkins and Eric Avery, amazing musicians as well. I've seen them live once with all 4 original members, and that was a great show up at the Arlene Schnitzer.
Oh, nice venue too.
Yeah, and they had like an X-rated stage show, which was cool.
Hell yeah.
It was fun.
When was that?
That was like mid 2000s, like 2014, 2013.
Oh shit.
Yeah,
Okay.
so a while ago. But
Was that the Ninja tour with 9 Inch Nails?
no, that would have been
That would have been
sweet.
sick.
Oh, man, I forgot about that album until I started looking into Night Jane's Addiction a little bit more.
Same.
It's like, oh yeah, there was that album. So I have a lot of love for this album. That's why I bought it on vinyl. That's why I paid a pretty penny for it. But what would you guys think?
You go ahead.
Me? Okay.
I could also go on a
Okay.
similar.
All right.
Tangent.
This is my first introduction to this album, which is nuts, because I see this all the time get brought up. Like, I mean, we collect vinyl. There's always, people talk about what's a good album to have, what's a good one to listen to, and just, something to get into. So I've seen this plenty of times, this cover, and I've heard of the name Jane's Addiction, but I've never actually jumped into it. So my first trip, getting into it, very great. I love Perry's vocals. I think at some points it's kind of hard, but I've been falling in love with it. I love his vocals. Not only that, just the band in general is super good. Dave Navarro, he's nuts. He's fucking nuts. Some of his solos are insane.
Wildly underrated.
Super young too.
Yeah, he was like,
You know,
what? Like not even...
barely 19. 18
Yeah, I was about to
years.
say, he
Oh
wasn't
my
even 20.
god, the pictures on the back, it's like, that's them. It's nuts. And yes, crazy influential. It influenced so many people. Like a lot of bigger artists like Nirvana, Kurt Cobain. Like they have a bunch of like, at some point, like roots back to this. So that goes to show, not only for the band, this being their first album being a live album, which is very raw. You hear everything. You hear, the crowd, but just insane, and I think just a staple in music history in general, just for the whole music and as a whole. So glad I got into it. Glad I listened to it. I want to look into, I think, the second album that came out after this it's like got like 2 ladies on it.
Ritual de lo Habitual.
Yeah.
There's Nothing Shocking, I think, has the twins on it, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Nothing Shocking.
I think so. One of those, but it's definitely a good starting point. I gotta look into more of Jane's Addiction.
That's a great album too. I was gonna bring that one up, but it was between those two. I was like, I have more love for this one. I don't know why.
No, hey,
that album's good too.
To each their own. I love both of them almost equally, but I personally steer Ritual de lo Habitual, because it was the one that I dove into first, and then I went back to this one. But I got into them around the time that Ninja thing came out.
Okay.
I had heard of Jane's Addiction kind of through that, because I was getting into 9 Inch Nails, yada, 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 yada. Anyway, I was 13, got into Ritual, and then got into this album. And I mean, by God, dude, the shit that they were doing in 1986, like, to put it into perspective, Master of Puppets was the shit at the time. Van Halen had done 1984 and then some. And then to come out with this is unreal. Alternative wasn't a thing. Grunge wasn't even in a nutsack yet.
Yeah.
Grunge wasn't. Like, it's wild to think that how the time that this came out. That's because I think, again, like I said, I wasn't near as into like music history back then as I am now. So I don't think I even realized that this came out in '86. So that's been what's wild for me to try and wrap my head around this past month, is like, this this can't be.
I know. How
This
is it
came out in
allowed?
87.
Wait a minute.
Dude,
It's a lie. It's a conspiracy.
Exactly. I was losing it. I was like, no shit. And as you guys said, Dave Navarro, a wildly underrated guitarist, did an album with Red Hot Chili Peppers, and unfortunately was overshadowed. But he's unreal. And sorry, Perry Farrell kills it this whole time. The songwriting on it, Chip Away, to wrap this album up with a jungle beat at the end. I don't know how to describe. I don't know what happens at the end of this album with Chip Away. When that song comes on, I'm like, oh my god, in this tree. I was like, dude, like, whoa. Like, upon hearing it for the first time again, like, I was like thrown for a loop almost. And I do like the lack of crowd noise for the most part, like how there's not a lot of it. Just like in the intro, and like very sporadic. It's not The Dance by Fleetwood Mac. It's not Another Stony Evening. I like live albums where it's like where it's like, we can't capture the essence of this band in a studio because they're so kick-ass, we have to make their debut a live album. And that's what Jane's Addiction was. Like, they're like, yeah, we can't capture this in studio. There will be a picture that comes up probably at some point while we're talking about this that shows what their live out like stage was. Perry Farrell's in like assless chaps with bright red underwear. Dave Navarro shirtless with a fucking bounty hunter Stevie Ray Vaughan hat on. Like, wild. Like, they set a bar and then people forgot about it. And then they came back, like people came back, and it's like, no, actually, anything that's alternative music related has to surpass this.
Yeah, for sure.
And I still think people don't realize, like, no, Jane's Addiction really set a bar for what alternative music would come to be, and it was truly alternative.
Yep.
Funny thing about the crowd noise, I guess the crowd noise was not. It kind of took away from the performance, so they had to edit that out. And instead, they inserted an audience track from a Los Lobos concert. I swear to Christ. I'm like, why? Wow. But apparently, the recording wouldn't have been as good because I think the crowd was just a little louder, so they tried to even it out. But I was like, why? How did they choose that?
That's
like,
so
hey,
quiet.
we got this on track in the studio. We'll just use that. Yeah, it's like, okay.
Oh my god. That's
Needless
so
to say.
Good. Needless to say, killer.
For coming out and playing these songs live, I think they all did a great job. And Ship Away is another fun song. He said, don't do this ever. But a friend and I, when we were in high school, 16, first car, there was a street over off of Cal Young Road that was like spyglass. It's got a big hill.
Oh, yeah.
And so we get really stoned, and he'd drive really fast down that. We played the song. No idea why we did that. Don't do that ever. That's stupid, right? But we would do it every weekend for a while.
For a whole summer.
Yeah.
Chip away. Yeah.
Chip away.
Yeah. So, good memory. Good.
That's awesome, man. And the fact that you got let me ask a little bit more about you acquiring this. Have they not done represses of
They
this?
have not.
They haven't done represses of this album. What? Really?
Whoa. Yeah.
So this is like you had to go to the
I went
eBay.
on eBay. Yeah,
the eBay.
This
the
COG
source.
was, a little lower. It's gone up since I got it. I only paid $90, so it wasn't that bad. But,
Right.
Yeah.
That's why of all the albums that they don't repress, this one is wild that
It's
they
a
have.
hidden gem. A lot of people don't know about this album, even if they know this band. They go back to Nothing Shocking, which is a great album. Huge songs on that album.
Yeah.
And then Ritual.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you hear this album, like you said, it sums it up. This is alternative before that even became alternative.
Yeah.
So it sets that whole space up for all those bands to evolve and be like, hey, these guys are doing different music. Let's do it too. We don't have to be the hair metal band. We don't have to be the thrash metal band. Those are all great things. But at the same time, music was changing. And I think they set the bar, like you said, for that whole era that came after that.
It's cool too. Jane says it gives me like a blues-esque, like a little blues vibes too from it. And some songs, like I feel like the beginning of the half of the album is more fast-paced.
Yeah, definitely.
Like with Trip Away. But even that song, like in the midpoint, it slows down. It's not as crazy. It's just real slow, and then it has a killer ending. So it has that. It has up and downs. I Would For You also. It's a real good mellow song to the album. Love that song. Kept coming back to it. But man, it's very diverse too for the time it came out.
Yeah.
It's a lot of different types of genres in it, and it kind of paved the way for everything else.
Decent covers too towards the end of the album, with
yeah.
rock and roll and Sympathy. I thought they did a great job because Sympathy's been covered a million times.
And I don't. Now that I've heard that one, I think that might be the best one. And not to say that to beef up this episode of this album. Again, there's been 1,001 covers of "Sympathy for the Devil" by the Stones, and this might be the most true to form one. That's
For sure.
It's as true to the original song as you're going to get from any of these covers, and it's the best one. I think Perry Farrell's kind of, pun intended, 100%. What am I doing? Feral cat energy that he puts over the please like the long warbly voice and everything. It's like, of course you were meant to cover Mick Jagger.
Yeah.
Like I would listen to him cover an entire album's worth of if he did Greatest Hits Reimagined, I'd be all over that.
The solo on Sympathy too. Oh,
yeah.
dude.
Yeah, so good.
So good.
But he's got that, the vocal can get a little Geddy Lee-ish if you don't like that high range. So I've heard that comparison a lot,
It makes perfect sense, which is why I think a lot of people are steered away from Jane's Addiction. But it's like, no, you have to, if you don't like their music, you have to realize what they did for it all, really. Any music genre, they kind of paved a way for a lot of stuff, experimenting, really.
Sure.
Yeah.
And a song like "I Would For You," like you said, that shows a different side of his vocal range, where he's not sounding like a feral cat, and he's just speaking from the heart. That's a sad song, you listen to it in the right mood.
Yeah.
Good track. It's a good track. Yeah.
It's a double-edged sword, because also it's also if you listen to it in the opposite mindset, it's also kind of a positive to me, at least.
Yeah.
And I like, as I've kind of mentioned a little bit, been getting into more bass inspired stuff, and so I liked the fact that song was mainly just the bass guitar kind of just riffing a little bit. That was kind of nice, and it was just the vocal in that bass line a little bit, kind of chill out a little bit through the middle part of the album there. So I like that song a lot.
I think influential is an understatement.
Oh, 100%.
It is. I agree.
Yeah. I think because of the stuff that they put out after this, they get lumped into the B or C tier of the grunge movement, and it's
that comes back to Perry Farrell being one of the organizers for Lollapalooza, the first.
That's
Lollapalooza
very
was his
true.
thing, and so I think having all that kind of overshadowed what their sound was, and it
True.
became kind of that sound, which it wasn't.
Very, very, very good point. Actually, I always forget that he did the Lollapalooza thing.
They asked him to do the other one, and he's like, "Nah."
Coachella.
Yeah, or no, the other Lollapalooza when they redid that.
Oh
He
shit!
was like, nah.
No, I'm good. That's wild.
Good thing. Too.
Exactly. Yeah, very good thing. Hell yeah!
I'm glad you guys like this album.
Me too. I'm glad that you brought it up, because I had some time. I went back and listened to Ritual, and I was like, man, this was a time. It was. I was getting into this band while I was reading Scar Tissue, and
Nice.
so he was talking about Dave Navarro a little bit in that book, and so I got into these guys through that kind of. And I was like, man, what a time for me. I was 13 listening to Other Side by Red Hot Chili Peppers and fucking Jane Says.
The guitar solo on 3 Days on that album is probably one of the best of their discography for Dave Navarro.
Stop might be one of my favorite intros, just that kind of the bass groove that it does. Yeah. I am skin and bones, I am pointy nose. Motherfucker, make me try. Yeah. Dude, it's so good. So good. Listen to please, for the love, listen to this album. It's so good. But after that, immediately go listen to Ritual de la Habitual. It's so fucking good. The album cover's wild. Jane's Addiction, great band. I love them.
Let's top three it up.
Let's do it, baby.
Honorable mention for me, I Would For You, just because it's a different feel for the whole album. Very soft, very heartfelt from Perry and the boys. 3, 2, 1, My Time. We didn't really talk about that song. I thought that had a happy vibe. That's a song that they don't really perform live and never made it on an album besides this one, obviously. And, number 2, Pigs and Zen. Dave Navarro's guitar playing on that song is intense. The lyricism in that song is intense. And it's just that's the feel of that album. Is that song.
Very much so.
And then Trip Away, I just like how that starts off the album, and you're on a ride after that. My favorite.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I agree with you. Trip Away is a great way to start off the album. Jake, you go ahead.
Honorable mention. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go. Jane Says. I love that. I like that song a lot.
Yep.
Number 3, I Would For You. I love that great mellow kind of separation in the album, and a lot more heartfelt. Pigs and Zen, because we talk about the pig. Mm-hmm. I thought it was really funny though.
We talk about the pig.
We talk about the pig.
I did also have a thing. I was like, man, I was about to I was about to say I love a fucking song that has
A good pig song, yeah.
a good pig titled track.
Yeah. Pig is in the mud. And my favorite song, Trip Away. I'm realizing it now. I pretty much just have copy paste Matt's favorite song.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
But yeah, Trip Away, favorite song for sure.
Hell yeah. Honorable mentions for me, Rock and Roll. Felt like that was... there's this weird middle part to this album that gets very intense for me. You know, it's kind of like... it just kind of is like, wow, there's a lot of good shit going on. And then Rock and Roll is kind of like the end of this, like, what the hell?
Yeah.
What the hell is that? So I like that song. Honorable mention for me also was Pigs in Zen. Again, love a good song with pig in the title. Number 3, Jane Says, mainly because this is the best iteration that they've done of this song, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And they've done, I think they've put it on at least 2 albums after. And this is by far the best one. Number 2 for me, Chip Away, the one that I kind of referenced earlier, that jungle song. I heard it as I was coming back from running errands today. It was like one of the last songs I heard coming off of the freeway, and I was like, nah, this is the end of the album. Like, this is the perfect way to put a bow on it, and I would have hated to be in that crowd if that was actually the end of the set list. I would have been like, what the fuck? They just built all that momentum and
now
then
go
spit
home.
in my mouth. So Chip Away. And the number 1 wild card, I Would For You.
Nice.
I liked the mellow kind of change up in his... you know, kind of his vocals already sound like very anxious and like distressed, but he kind of hones it, like he weaponizes it on this song. Kind of, that's the beauty of that track. I feel like is his off course. You know, it's not his vocal track is a little out there to kind of get into, or his vocal sound rather. And I feel like that's him weaponizing it and being like, no, this is the heart of the song, is the fact that I sing in a crazy way.
Well said.
So I loved I Would For You. That's my favorite song on the album.
One last parting word.
Go ahead.
A review of this album by some guy for a magazine back in the day. Here is proof that Jane's addiction surpassed puberty before they came of age. This album, I think it sums it up, because like everything you just said, you know, with the genres not being there, and then they set the bar, and then they're just like, yep.
Yeah. And then by the time people, like we kind of said, by the time people noticed him, it was like, yeah, no, we did it.
Yeah.
Yep.
You guys are late to the game.
Yeah.
You guys are like
Yep.
6 to 8 years late.
Right,
Like,
yeah.
we've did this already. In Utero, kiss my ass. No, I'm kidding. That album rules. And so does this one.
Yes.
Jane's Addiction, self-titled. Jane's Addiction live from 1986. My boy Matt's pick for this week. We'll be right back to introduce what's coming to you next time on Whatchu Spinnin' episode 72. We'll catch you in a sec. Peace. Hell yeah. Boys, how do we feel about today's episode?
Man, I don't even know what to
Fan.
say.
Yeah.
I think we all came back with a bang, had some good music, and good conversation like we always do.
Absolutely. Jake, anything? You liked it?
I
Did you have a
loved
good
it.
time? Did you have
It's
a
good
good
to be
time?
back. Good to be back with the boys, talking about tunes,
Yes, it has
Absolutely.
been nice.
bringing up, just stuff to listen to throughout the week, and
Yeah.
keep myself always listening.
Yeah. I like the group chat too, because we just all send each other stuff, and it's like, oh man, I've heard that. I gotta listen to the full thing. 1 second. Oh, holy shit! You know, or like, the Makami thing, not on my radar. So I'm glad that y'all sent, that y'all sent that. And then, I wish that maybe we redo the combo playlist and see what it is now. See where everybody is now.
I say
maybe I'll do that today when I go ahead and make the episode playlist for number 72. Because I like seeing what y'all are listening to.
I'm still a part of it. I still look at it.
Oh yeah, I personally haven't looked at it in a while, but I wonder if redoing it and remaking it this far apart would refresh it.
I hope so.
I think it would.
Yeah, because I know I've been listening
I've changed it up a lot.
Yeah, but yeah, actually, before we dive into what's coming next episode, let's talk collecting a little bit. We've all been collecting for a long time. I've been doing some more in-person like record shopping, which has been a hindrance on me getting stuff that I really, really, really want. But it has opened up my mind to kind of like a weird, I guess, kind of awakening I'm going through to where I'm buying stuff that I'm like, even if I'm not a huge fan of every single song on the album, I'm like, yeah, of course I'm going to get that. I'm also not gonna lie, Amy Winehouse fucking rules, but I'm not her hugest fan. I saw a discounted like used vinyl of Back in Black or Back to Black, bought it. I've been getting more into like buying used stuff, and it's funny to me. I've kind of realized a thing about value and how it can be very subjective. Like I was just telling you guys before what made me kind of pause and be like, let me save this because I want to talk about it on the pod, is I bought Boz Scaggs' Silk Degrees, Lido Shuffle, great songs on that album, for like $3 used at House of Records about 2-3 weeks ago. And it has a sticker on it that's like Columbia Recordings. I'll show it to you guys later. And it's like not for resale. And I'm like, to me, that holds so much more value. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, that's so cool. It says like not for resale. Like the jacket might be, the edges might be a little beat up, whatever, it still plays. But it's just funny the value that Discogs or like record stores even want to like try and instill on stuff. And it's like, hey man, one man's trash is another man's treasure. I sent you guys a picture a while back. I got Abraxas by Santana, like a Japanese pressing. If you look at Discogs, I paid $5 too much for it. But to me, the fact that it's a Japanese pressing and has an OBI strip, I would have paid $40 for that thing. To me, that fucking rules. And so I've just been getting on. Matt, you've kind of like mentioned my collection growing. You've been watching it on Discogs, and I'm just buying whatever. I'm just buying. I just want more, in my collection. And so I'm like, Face Value by Phil Collins. That has In the Air Tonight on it, right? Cool. I'll buy it. Sure. Whatever that album is by Steely Dan. I'm looking at it, especially when it's used, because then it's, Parsley, Sage, Rosemary, and Thyme. I paid another $3 for that album. It's not that great. There's like a couple, as far as like their greatest hits go, there's only a couple, but you have to be like I grew up listening to Simon and Garfunkel, so it is like one of my favorites, but in the grand scope of their discography. But anyway.
There's a whole like, thing for like with the promo records that you're talking about. I picked up a Gary Newman one, I Assassin, and it was an open one. Got it on eBay. But I was looking, I was like, is there like a thing for people to collect those? So I was looking at Boys for Pele and other albums, and they have basically those for all the albums that we like. So there's definitely a collector out there that looks for those. And
that's awesome.
For everything.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, for everything.
And I thought about like diving down, like, nah. No. I could, but I don't want to. And like when I first started collecting a long time ago with my old collection, having over like 500 or 600 vinyls, I would shop the same way you did. Be like, there's a couple good songs. I need it. I need it.
Same.
Starting fresh a couple years ago, I decided not to do that as often because I don't want to like increase that collection too much to where I can't store it and show it off. So nowadays I'm a little bit more selective, but when you guys bring up these albums, it's hard not to go buy them because they're so fucking good. So.
Yeah. And it also makes you think of other stuff.
Yeah.
Like that's my main thing that I take away from the podcast, other than, adding stuff to like my personal stuff that I like, adding shit to my playlists, or just loving an album. is it reminds me or makes me think of, oh, the stuff I discover based off of shit from the podcast is banana land. It gets crazy.
It does.
And Jake, do you have any?
I mean, going back to that, like the value and resell or whatever, like there's some stuff at the same time that you can't put a value on it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, My Hair's album, I wouldn't sell that. Sorry, Dorian.
No, 100%.
My, like, some albums that I have, like, are near and dear to me that I would not sell for. And even at the same time, some of the stuff you see at the store, it's not, like, what should be at face value, you know? Like, maybe it's used, maybe it's new, maybe, you know, it has more sentimental value for someone else. But, like, at the end of the day, I think you should just pick what you pick, like what you like, and if you want to buy it, you know, if you want to own a copy of it, do it. And that, you know, not only is good for you, but good for the artist.
Sure.
You know, good for small business. It kind of circles all around. But physical media, I think it's kind of not really looked at as a whole much nowadays, like CDs, cassettes, all that. It's not very much.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool to still have a collection of something that, you know, you can actually hold in your hand that's not digital, that you can appreciate more in depth.
Yeah. And I love, that's like the aspect that I love is like the physical aspect of it. I mean, clearly, like we're in my living room and dining room right now. Like, this is where I spend most of my time. And, you know, every week I pick a different 6 to throw up. And, it's just, that's also part of the drive of it is like, man, this one would look sick on my wall, you know, or like, that also kind of adds a fun layer to it. I understand. I'm getting into dangerous territory. Let me fucking tell you, Matt. I hear you, but it's too fun.
It's fun. No, I agree.
But no, I do like. There are certain times where, like, I could have picked up "Significant Other" by Limp Bizkit 5 times already because I saw it for super cheap. I haven't done it but I am going to at some point. But because it's a guilty pleasure of mine. But just I've been perusing. I find myself going towards the used bins more, that's kind of like an evolution in myself as a collector. Like I've got a not so great condition copy of War by U2, but I fucking love that album, and so I'm stoked to have a copy of it.
And I found Joshua Tree at Mood Rock used.
Yeah,
same thing. You never know what you're gonna find. And House has a great. That's where I go right when I go to House. Is that used new section that's right there.
And they're an interesting one. Sorry, just real quick, Jake. They're an interesting one to shop used for because they don't confine their stuff to one area, so you could find like where they have the electronic quote unquote section. You'll find that's where I found like Parsley Sage was in that weird little electronic section. They have a used area right there. So yeah, that's exactly what I've been doing too. I'm like every single corner I can find that says used.
The thrill of the hunt, dude. Just looking around, trying to maybe you have something in mind, but just going and crate digging, you'll find something you like. You know,
Seconds is a great place for that. If you go upstairs,
there's like just unmarked bins.
You need to go there. It's
tables worth of them.
I say we meet up and like make it a point to go there. Like fuck the other two.
Yeah, let's just go there.
I love both of the other ones, but I say we go there. See if I have any of my old collection in that one in particular.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Well, speaking of this podcast making you think of other albums that you maybe didn't give a chance, or you know, maybe listening to an album from this podcast made you think of something in a different light, which is what happened to me thanks to Matt's pick that we just talked about. Actually, Jane's Addiction made me kind of go back and listen to this album that I had listened to 14 years ago, and made me fall in love with it, actually, because I looked at it in a different light. I'm not bringing up Jane's Addiction. That'd be funny. Hilarious, though. You want to talk about a revisit? What if I did it right now? I'm kidding. Give me 1 second.
I saw it. I got a little
He's
sneak
got to
peek.
unwrap it.
I got a sneak peek.
I'm going with 1993's Siamese Dream
nice.
by Smashing Pumpkins. What I would consider to be alternative in the midst of that grunge movement. 1993 Siamese Dream, Smashing Pumpkins. Fell in love with that this past month, and Thanks, Mom, for buying it for me for a late Christmas present.
Ooh, very nice. Very nice. I like that.
Oh, Billy. I love it.
I've been on a bender of like indie and this genre.
Another indie
we
kick?
could say another indie kick.
What do we got?
I'm going debut Arctic Monkeys. Favorite worst nightmare.
Okay.
I've
this episode already fucking rules. I love that album.
yeah, I fucking love this album.
Sweet. I'm going back to 2014. This album helped me get through a rough period in my life. It's an indie band called From Indian Lakes. The album's called Absent Sounds.
Ooh.
They're out of California. Saw them live and got to meet the lead singer. Pretty cool guy. But yeah, good album. Indie, 2014.
Hell
I
yeah.
already love it because I don't know what it is.
Me
so
either.
I love that I'm gonna get a new experience with this.
Indian Lakes?
From Indian Lakes.
From Indian Lakes. Okay. Hell yeah. I love that. I have a feeling it reminds me already early exam reminds me of Mimicking Birds. So
Okay.
we'll see how that translates in about 2 weeks' time. We've got From Indian Lakes, Absent Sounds, Arctic Monkeys. What was the
Favorite worst nightmare.
Favorite Worst Nightmare, and Siamese Dream by Smashing Pumpkins. I'm Dorian. That's Jake. That's Matt. We appreciate you stopping by for this episode 71 of Whatchu Spinnin. Please, please, please tell somebody about this podcast. Everywhere you find podcasts, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or your mom and pop website. We have an RSS feed, so whatever the fuck that means, you can find it anywhere. Go ahead, follow us on Instagram at Whatchu Spinnin, spelled exactly how you see it in the title. I will be posting more on that page. However, in the meantime, go ahead and follow me personally on Instagram at Dorian Dilly. Every week, about Saturday, Sunday time, I post my weekly album wall, post music shit throughout the time, and now that I'm kind of filling in for people on bass, I will be posting if I get asked to gigs on there. So pay attention because sometimes it'll be a quick turnaround time. Anyway. We love you. We appreciate you stopping by. Please go support your local record store, support your local artists, see live music, and discover something new on Spotify or Apple Music. Please, for the love of God, let me know when you get home safe. I love you. Drive safe. Bye.